Hi there, I'm Joe Johnson, your music host on board the Flower Power Cruise and on the Rock and Romance Cruise and occasionally the Disco Cruise. As you know, we've had to push the cruises back to 2022. We have a firm date for the Rock and Romance Cruise going out for a full week, February 19th of 2022. And we have an unbelievable lineup. You can go to rockandromancecruise.com to check it out. But we're here to meet one of our superstars that's going to be on board with us. Her smooth, unmistakable voice can be heard on dozens and dozens of songs that we love. Midnight Blue, Don't Cry Out Loud, Through the Eyes of Love, Coming from the Rain, Just You and I, so many more. And she has a new album coming out called Review. We'll explain what that means coming up in just a few minutes. We have so much to talk about. I'm from Brooklyn. She's from the Bronx. Ladies and gentlemen, you should hear how she talks about you. Please welcome Melissa Manchester. Oh my God, it's so great to meet you.
So good to meet you too as well. Thank you.
Wow, how are you feeling and how has it been? And you're in California, so you've been in lockdown, and what's it been like? Has it made your creative juices flow? What's been happening?
Well, as you know, it's so odd. All of this is so odd. And yet, because it's gone on so long, I really feel like it has peeled back layers of how you live. At first, there was a lot of anxiety because my career was brought to an abrupt halt. And then there was sort of grief about what to do next and a sense of loss. And as time went on, my daughter moved back in with me, which was lovely because her company is shut down as well. I mean, she's working, but the buildings are shut down. So that's been lovely. And I have been doing some writing, and I have been releasing a video a month since September from the forthcoming project called Review. Yes.
Yeah, and the one you did with the healthcare workers, is it Just You and I? Yeah. Oh, it's so touching. I mean, so many moments in that video, I thought my heart was going to stop.
Yes. I took the opportunity to rethink some of these songs. Some of these songs I'm leaving pretty much as is. Although there are no fade endings, not one.
No paid endings?
Fade.
Oh, fade endings. Okay.
Endings. Yes. I have learned from the stage all of these years that it's just satisfying to come to an end and people go, that's the end. Carry on.
When I was a kid, I would take the record and on the record player and I would turn it up to hear the ending, like Ticket to Ride or whatever. Yeah. I want to hear it. It's going to hear it end. And, I was like hoping for that secretly.
Well, yes. In the past, radio really needed to know the timing of records so they could snugly fit into the news or the weather report.
Sure.
And that still may be true, but I don't know. I just got to a point where endings are just more satisfying to me than fades. And so, but be that as it may, for Just You and I, which you were kind enough to bring up, I really wanted it to, the thing is, these songs somehow mysteriously have grown into this moment.
Right.
And Just You and I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the first responders. Those who were invisible suddenly became essential.
Sure.
Nurses and healthcare workers and delivery people and mail people and teachers and all that. But I also wanted to incorporate the young students that I work with at Citrus College, where I'm artist in residence. And they're singing the backgrounds on that song and magnificently that I wrote for them. And their pop band is also playing the track. But I also wanted to harken back to clips of the WPA projects that were created during the Great Depression under Franklin Roosevelt and what we can do as Americans when we come together. So it was, it became many layered and multi-textured, and I think it served this moment well.
So are you going to do that with a lot of your back catalog as far as releasing a song every month?
Yes, that's what I'm doing. From Review, the point of Review is manifold. It is to revisit the hits, tweak the harmonies a little bit, open it up a little bit. Some of it is the same. But the other thing is that, like many of my fellow artists, we are, several of us, back in the studio to re-record our hits so that we can own the masters. Because when we signed record deals in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, there was no such thing as social media. There were no revenue streams like there are today. And so those master tracks belong to the record companies who, were big engines. They had press, they had money, they were the best. They allowed us to do the work. But in this moment, to empower ourselves, we are re-recording our hits so that they can be licensed from us directly.
I think Taylor Swift went back and in like one day recorded all of her album that she didn't own.
Yes, Bob Seger's doing it. A lot of people are doing it. So
Yeah.
anyways, and so the vehicle for that in this moment, where are we going anyway, is to release a video a month of a new song, so people can sort of have a visual experience of it, be reminded of the song, see how the song fits into this moment in some mysterious way, which has been the most surprising thing for me.
So you grew up in a pretty musical, educated family with classical music playing and show music playing, and then you started singing jingles. Is that really the kind of the beginning? Do you remember any of the products you sang jingles for?
Oh, sure.
Can you tell us?
Yeah, I sang for McDonald's and Pepsi, and a lot of Canadian products. But yes, that's how I met Barry Manilow. We were both jingle singers. And in those days, the crew of singers was so stunning. Patty Austin was a jingle singer. Valerie Simpson and Nikki Ashford were singers. And so that's how we all got to know each other.
That's hilarious. I'm trying to think if there's even any jingles left in the world, because TV shows pretty much just start. I mean, Seinfeld had like this short little musical intro, but there's not really theme songs anymore. And then the jingles obviously would be the products, back in the day, the cigarettes and things like that.
There are still jingles. But in those days, jingle houses only existed in New York and I think Detroit or Chicago. But now, because everything can be done from anywhere, there are jingle houses in many, many locations.
So you met up with Barry singing jingles, and then he introduced you to his friend Bette Midler. Because was he working? He was her piano player at the time.
He was her new music director.
Right.
And she and he were performing in a club called the Continental Bath House, which was a gay club. And I was performing at a club up the street called the Focus. And Barry brought her to my performance on their night off. And I had just seen her on the Carson show, and she just tore the place up.
She was great on Carson.
It was incredible, yeah. And she had no background singers, and I introduced myself to her, and everybody was so excited for each other in those days. And I asked her what she was doing next, and she said, "Well, I'm getting ready for my first Carnegie Hall debut." And I said to her, "Are you thinking of having background singers?" And she asked me, "Would you like to sing in back of me?" And I thought to myself, "No, I'd like to sing instead of you." But in the meantime, so Barry and I created what became the Harlettes, and I was the toots in the middle, and I worked for her for 6 months, and it was really fantastic.
I met her one time, and she couldn't have been lovelier. It was such a great experience.
She's a lovely, brilliant woman, yes.
Yeah, she's so funny. So how did you end up, then did you start writing music at that point because you were around somebody that's so creative? Was it inspiring you to write and sing on your own, personally?
I have been writing. I started writing when I was about 15 or 16. And then when I was 17, my two friends signed me up, unbeknownst to me, for a songwriting class at NYU taught by Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel. And that was really extraordinary to study with him. And much of what I learned from him, I teach students today. So
did he, I think I read that he was promising to bring some special guests by. Did he ever bring any?
He did. Oh, yes, he did. He actually brought the violinist extraordinaire, Isaac Stern. He brought him right off the stage of Carnegie Hall down to the West Village one night. And he brought Al Cooper. And but it was such an interesting class. He taught it for 6 months, and it was very simply run. He wanted everybody to show up with an idea or a verse or a finished song, but he did as well. He came in with ideas that he was working on. And at the time, Bridge Over Troubled Waters was #1 all over the world.
Yeah.
And he talked about the process, and he talked about what he knew to be true, because in those times, American popular songs were really being changed. Language of it was being infused by psychology and metaphor. The Beatles were around then. Joni Mitchell was around then. Laura Nyro, Sly and the Family Stone, James Taylor, Stevie Wonder. Everybody was just still starting out and filled with sparkling ideas.
So your first album, Home to Myself, and then Bright Eyes, and then Melissa, which has Midnight Blue. I had those. My sisters and I had those albums constantly growing up. So I listened to all the album. I listened to everything on the albums, and it was such a pleasure. But so when Midnight Blue came around, that was co-written by you. And did you have the confidence that you were going to sing it? But didn't you try to give it to, or have Dusty Springfield record it?
No. Dusty had recorded 2 songs that I wrote with Carol Sager. But Midnight Blue, Carol and I submitted to Dionne Warwick. And when her producer heard it, he called Carol and he said, "Who's the girl singer on the demo?" And it was me. And so Dionne never recorded Midnight Blue. She later recorded a few of my other songs, and we've been very close friends ever since. But yes, that's how that all worked out.
I can't imagine anybody but you singing that song. I mean, it's,
a lot of people have recorded it. I'm very honored by, but it was really amazing. You know, I had heard myself on the radio for many years singing commercials, but to actually hear a composition that you wrote, where you really remember the moment it was written, the moment it was finished, what it felt like in the studio, doing the demo of it, it was really uncanny.
You know, I always wanted to know what someone who wrote a hit song, what they think about when they hear the song. You know, I've heard Paul McCartney say, "Oh, I think of the session and whatever we were doing." When you hear it, do you now tie it into events that are more closer to today, or do you still go back to 1975 and singing with headphones on in the studio, and you think about the moment?
Well, the thing is, time is fluid, and so you can't help but remember what it was like to write that song with Carol, to remember the song is very conversational because it literally came out of conversation. And that's one of Carol Sager's great talents, is that she captures that conversational tone, which really pulls in the listener as if they're listening to the middle of a discussion, which is very, very specific. And I remember being in the studio recording the demo with my band. And I remember in the moment of recording, I didn't really have an introduction. And I came up with that opening vamp. And I thought, sounds all right. And that became the opening of the record. And the fact that when I released it last month or 2 months ago from Review, a newly fashioned, it was the specific song that showed present me in conversation with much younger me, the one who performed Midnight Blue and broke that record. And it was very, very touching, really touching.
What is your show like? So when we see you on the Rock and Romance cruise, is it with your band? Or are you doing tell us what your show is like?
Well, it's very textured. I show a lot of, it's a lot of the hits, of course. And it's a lot of songs from my more recent recordings. You Got More for Life, and the last one, The Fellas, which was my tribute to several of the great men who really touched me, just like several of the great women who touched me as crooners. But I perform all of the hits, or most of the hits, and I play, and I have 2 or 3 people on stage with me, and though we are a small group, we are small but mighty.
You seem like the person that would talk between the songs and tell stories, and you
can't shut me up. I love my stories. I mean, I love my stories because they're so tender, and they're sometimes when I tell my stories, I can't even believe.
You can't believe them. Okay, then they must be true.
Yes, it is. It's very sweet, and And I love talking about the process, and what I have found that audiences love listening to the process and the stories behind the songs. So yes, I'm not shy on stage at all. It's my happy place, and I have found that the audiences perform beautifully for me as well.
Wow. Yeah, yeah. We had Randy Bachman last year, and he did he actually set up every song with a story. It was a little different, but it was interesting to hear one song, and I think it was No Time, and he was saying that's really about Vietnam, and who would have known that except to hear the
Well,
story. So it's always great to hear the origins and how they were written and how you found them and what you were doing at the time, what you were going through. You know, we all relate to that, except we all don't have hits to go out and share with everyone.
right.
You've written songs for quite a few people, Barbra Streisand, and I remember being a DJ and playing Whenever I Call You Friend, the Kenny Loggins Stevie Nicks song. And you know, as a radio record freak, I'm always looking to see who plays on it and who did it. And I saw
Yeah,
your name, and then I thought, well, the next time I go on the air, I'm going to say this was written by Melissa Manchester. You know,
yeah.
so. Why didn't you sing it with Kenny? Because instead he has Stevie Nicks. I guess you were touring and doing your thing.
No, I think Stevie she just had a bigger coolness quotient than I did. And so, I think that was in his mind all along. It's just that Kenny and I kept meeting each other at these televised award shows. We were frequently co-presenters.
Okay.
And in those days, because the shows were new, we were on almost every 2 weeks, and we were meeting each other in the green room, and it was kind of funny. And so at one point, I just invited him over to my house, and he had this idea, and so we wrote the song together. And the production of his record is so fantastic, and I got a chance to hang out with Stevie Nicks several years later, and of course, I thanked her for her performance. And I said, by the way, do you happen to still perform the song? And she says, no, never. It was the most difficult song I'd ever recorded.
Yeah, well, she sang some of the lines, but she was mostly harmony and backup. She had a couple of lines in it, but I wonder why she wouldn't sing it. I don't know. She has a lot of material to pick from, I
Oh,
guess, with Fleetwood
oh,
Mac and her own career and all of that. And you wrote and you have a friendship with Barbra Streisand too. What song did Barbara do?
she recorded a song of mine called Just One Lifetime. She had actually heard it. I had recorded it, and her executive producer brought it to her attention because she was about to record an album in tribute to her husband to be, Tom Sawyer. And the note I got back from Barbara was, I love the choruses, but I can't quite follow the verses. Would you consider rewriting it? So I brought that to my co-writer, Tom Snow, who had written several songs for her. And I said, would you consider deconstructing and reconstructing this song? And so we did. And I mean, it was very interesting because I was really thinking about what Barbara was up to in that moment, and spiritually what she was up to, and the fact that this lovely journeyman actor fell in love with her, and she fell in love with him, and there was something solid about him that she recognized. And so we really tailored the lyrics and the melody to her fantastic range, including the bridge. And I had a demo made of the new version, and she said yes. And she recorded it and sent the finished mix to me. And I brought my late mother into my car because our car systems, sound systems are so great. And I said, I'm not going to tell you what this is, but I want you to listen to this. And I want you to know that I co-wrote this song. So Streisand is singing this extraordinary version of Just One Lifetime. And my mother's looking out the passenger seat window, and I'm looking out the driver's window. And when it was over, we looked at each other, and there were tears falling down. And it was really one of the great achievements, one of the great moments of my life, because she was such a maverick. She's just always been in the wallpaper of my universe. And so she was a New York girl. She was an unlikely, uncanny type, and she just forged her way. And so it was really thrilling to have that.
I think my parents had tears when they found out I was going to go into radio, but they, because you don't make any money for like your whole life. But it's been fun. I have a good time meeting people like yourself. So so many layers, and the Andrew Lloyd Webber, and have you done big theatrical shows with the backing orchestra where that's
Yes, I did. Yes, I did too. I did Song and Dance by Andrew Lloyd Webber, which was very interesting. I took over for Bernadette Peters. She did it on Broadway, and I did the national. I started in the national tour, and it was very, very rigorous. It was 6 months. I brought along my 9-month-old baby and his dad, my parents, and we traveled as a tribe. And I did 8 shows a week. And because I was starring in the show, on my day off, we traveled and I had to do all the press. I mean, it really showed me the deep reservoirs of strength that I didn't realize I had. And then I did another Andrew Lloyd Webber show called Music of the Night. And that was an ongoing tour. And that we toured with the Toronto Symphony. So that was really, really amazing. So
wow,
yeah.
what a crowd.
And all written for theater. So that's really wonderful.
You know, I know you've done a lot of covers. My Boyfriend's Back, and the Dirty Work by Steely Dan, and I Want to Be Where You Are. I mean, there's so many covers. And actually, when I heard I Want to Be Where You Are, I originally thought it was yours, but I think it was the Jacksons that did that song. But
it was. Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I did that. And I did Monkey See, Monkey Do, Michael
right.
Franks.
Michael Franks made that famous too, as well. Yeah, yeah. So were those songs, like especially My Boyfriend's Back and those early mid 50s, late early 60s, were those part of what you were listening to as a teenager?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I had a very eclectic childhood because my father played in the opera, in the Metropolitan Opera. So we listened to him practicing and listened to the opera on Saturday afternoons. And sometimes we would actually go to the opera. But we listened, as you said, to a lot of Broadway music because in those days, in the 50s and 60s, a lot of hits were still coming from the stages of Broadway. But we also listened to Murray the K, you know, some rock and roll and some jazz and some Latin music. I mean, we were in the Bronx, then we were in Manhattan. So there was just music all the time, everywhere. And my parents were wise enough to just have music playing. It wasn't about formally sitting down to, intentionally listen. It was just beautiful music. And in those days, as you know, great singers had songs written for them by great songwriters. So the level of composition and the level of performance is just stunning.
Yeah, yeah. What's your favorite memory of being on stage? And it was all over the world, right? I mean, you traveled quite a bit. So what do you remember? What's the most memorable moment for you on stage?
Oh my gosh, there have been a lot. One of my favorites is I was a guest. It was an all-star tribute to Ella Fitzgerald, and Ella Fitzgerald was my psychic musical godmother. She just lit the light for me when I was 5 years old. But anyway, so years later, it's Lincoln Center. It's an all-star tribute to Ella. And I'm singing, and Buck Perlman is playing, and Bobby McFerrin is playing, and the Manhattan Transit. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It was truly all-star. And at the very end of the evening, they gave her the key to the city.
Wow.
And we were all standing out front. We were all standing behind her as she's being given the key to the city, and the audience won't stop screaming, and they're tearing up playbills to make it into confetti, and it's just she's so unassuming. And and they wouldn't let her off the stage, and as she's passing me, finally they let her off the stage, and as she's passing me, finally she leans over to me and she said, "Did I do okay?"
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. I remember you on a Memorex commercial too for the cassette.
Yeah,
right?
she did a Memorex commercial. That's how I met her. Yes, she was just as delicious as ever. Yeah.
That's some great stuff. So when You Should Hear She Talks About You, you won a Grammy for that song. And I feel bad for the women that didn't win. I mean, you had Olivia Newton-John and Laura Branigan. And I mean, what a lineup. And you won. A great song. And you were right there kind of in the in the disco, the end of the disco, certainly the beat of that song was something everybody was dancing to and appreciating at the time.
Yeah, it was an unusual song for me because I was known as a balladeer at that point. But Clive Davis and his gang, you know, they wanted to figure out how to place me in some kind of a contemporary setting. And my friends Dean Pitchford and Tom Snow wrote that song, You Should Hear How She Talks About You, and presented it to me. And I had the great good fortune to be working with the magnificent Arif Mardin as producer. And so, though it was an unusual type of song for me to sing, the truth is it was a really great composition. And so, you know, it took me a while to get into it, but you know, it was just adorable. And yeah, and I'm so grateful for the gift, and I'm so grateful for my talented friends. And you know, in those days, I had magnificently talented friends, Marvin Hamlish and Carol Sager and Tom Snow and Dean Pitchford. And so when they would offer me a song, you know, it was like a Thursday afternoon. You want to sing this? Okay. And that was it. You know, I'd bring in my band or I wouldn't. And it was just a day. You had no idea how it would unfold and how it would resonate with people. You know, when I sang Through the Eyes of Love for Marvin and Carol, it was really, here, we have this song. Would you like to sing it? We'd love you to sing it. Okay. You know, just, so the fact that these songs have blossomed into these legacy pieces that have meant so much to people is really very, very touching.
Yeah, I think that's what you'll like about it, on the cruise is everybody gives you their space, but they're so appreciative for the art. You know, they're not wrangling to touch you. They're so happy to be included, and it's really very intimate. It's so much fun, and I can't wait.
I can't wait. I love cruises, and
well, we'll spoil you. Don't worry. We'll take really good care of you. But I wanted to ask you, and I think I already know the answer to this, but my wife and I were binging Schitt's Creek, you know, because of the fact that we were sitting home. You know, we knew it was going to end at the end of 6 or whatever it was seasons. And so we were trying to be, you know, just eat one a day or 2 a day, you know. But that one of your songs appears in there, blew me away because I obviously knew the song. And it was a scene in Schitt's Creek where they're in their rooms and they're trying to sleep. And somebody's playing your song. Can you tell us what was going on?
Yes, Don't Cry Out Loud coming through the wall really loud. It was hysterical. It was just hysterical.
Did they tip you off that was going to happen? Do they have to ask your permission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have to license the songs. But yes, it was beautifully done. It was hysterical to be used as a gag. You know, I mean, the whole point of it. So.
And it was nothing bad against the song. It just happened to be the instigator of the tension.
Well, exactly. And the fact that the title is Don't Cry Out Loud and these people are trying to go to sleep. Just really good.
That was great. Congratulations. And you probably were a fan of the show based on what I think I know about you.
So smart, and the actors the writing is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sorry that it's not. Maybe they'll have a comeback one of these days. What songs do you sing when you're walking around the house and you're just going about your day and you're not in the recording studio? What kind of songs come out?
That's a really interesting question. Well, one of my favorite songs is Silent Night. I sing that a lot.
Even if it's not Christmas.
Even if it's not Christmas.
Yeah.
And I sing Oh Danny Boy sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I sing things that have long lines because that's what makes sense to me the most. Yeah. But then when I'm working on something, of course, when I'm walking around working on something, I try to work on pieces away from the piano so that my hands don't fall into familiar patterns. Because I'm trying to create. You're doing this when
you're walking around. You're playing the piano when you're walking around.
No. I'm trying to not have that's why I don't sit at the piano, because I don't want my hands to familiar pattern. So I tried to really work on melodies first and really create something that harmonies can be grounded in and attached to.
So do you have any new music that's looming in there that hasn't made light of day yet?
Yes, yes. The review will contain one or two new songs, and then there's a project after that that we're already starting to record. But yes, I just finished writing a new song with a new songwriter in Wales. She's very talented. And I just finished writing a second choral piece. I had written a choral piece called Awake that I had released on Facebook and iTunes and YouTube. We had done a video of it. You know, in these times, the background of this moment and the past 4 years and the struggle, the civil struggles that we've been going through, as well as the pandemic, have sort of underscored a sense of urgency to get music out, to see where you can fit in and where your music can be of service. And so that's what's been interesting about this moment where there's nowhere to go except sort of inward. And so that's what I've been doing.
I wanted to ask you, and I didn't mention this, but I wanted to tell you that for me and my gal, the duet with Barry Manilow is so wonderful. And he obviously adores you. You can see it in the video. People can see it on your YouTube channel.
Yes, we are old and very
You're not old. You guys look great.
Yes, thank you. Well, we do love each other dearly, and he's a very deep friend, and I'm so glad that we have stayed connected all these years, and that he said yes. And it was so lovely when we recorded for me and my gal. He had to come to Citrus College, where I mentioned before, I'm artist in residence, and he met these kids, and he saw their studio, and he saw the state-of-the-art place that they study music in, and it was just really eye-opening for him, and he was as generous and kind with the kids as he could be. It was lovely.
Yeah, well, it came out beautiful. Is there somebody that's been on your bucket list that you would love to sing with that you haven't been able to connect with? I mean, you did with Al Jarreau, you've had many duets, but is there anybody out there?
Well, I would have loved to have recorded with Tony Bennett, but I don't know that would be. But I would love to record with Lady Gaga or Pink or Alicia Keys. I think these are, or John Legend. I think these are remarkably talented people.
Yeah, Lady Gaga is so spectacular. When I first saw her, I knew there was much more to her than a suit of meat.
Yes. Yeah, she's the real deal.
All right, so when is your new album coming out? We can look forward to the arrival date, or just a piece at a time?
Well, yes, we are doing this, as I said, a piece at a time. And so the arrival date will probably be maybe in late spring or summer. It depends on.
Okay.
There are 2 more songs that I have yet to record, and so the challenge is, how do we do that in this moment? Because not everybody's studios are open. So there's that, and but anyway, so probably in late spring, early summer.
Okay, well, we look forward to it. We can't wait to hug you, if that's going to be allowed on the cruise, but we can't wait to see you and be on board and hear you sing and tell stories. For me, I turn the radio up when the stories come on. Not that I turn the songs down, but I love hearing how things came together,
Exactly, me too.
And we're so happy. My honor to meet you. Thank you, Melissa Manchester. You're so wonderful, and you're going to be great on this. I can't wait to hear the rest of the new album, see the rest of the tracks, and just keep blossoming. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. I can't wait. See you soon.
Thanks.